Hey guys, Evan here, and this is the whole entire package. This is every episode that Drake and Josh season blank reviewed, or every episode that Drake and Josh reviewed. Yeah, so this is all four videos, and it actually includes the movie reviews too. Granted, they're very short and don't have a script, so I'll get to that when I get to that, but enjoy. Episode 1, Pilot. Cool dude Drake Parker is now stepbrothers with an optimistic nerdy dude named Josh Nichols. They try to adapt and become great stepbrothers. As the first episode of the show, and just of all shows Mr. Schneider has created, this episode is absolutely... yeah. It's not bad or anything, there's not much at fault here, but it's not great either. So let's break it down by story. So first off, Drake comes home and sees his mother and some dude making out, and admittedly it's kind of funny how he reacts to it. Then it's later revealed that they're going to get married. It's revealed the man is Walter, Josh's dad, a dorky kid who's husky and is a bit of a goofball. Drake freaks out and the theme song plays. I'm not gonna lie, the face Drake makes when screaming sort of creeped me out when I was young. I think it's the fact he's squinting his eyes and the fact that the zooming camera is, I don't know. Later, Drake finds out Josh was pretending to be a writer for the school newspaper. However, in order to him, okay, this is taking forever. I'm doing the Cliff Notes version of this. Later, Josh gets himself into a fight with the big dude while Drake is on a date, so he learns karate in one day. But it later turns out to be wasteless because he got punched in the face and knocked unconscious. Drake and Josh are now happy with each other now, and they become good stepbrothers. On the one hand, this episode does have a few funny jokes, like the karate montage, and to be fair, it's good to see these two have such a compassionate friendship, or brothership, however you want to put it. Also, Megan, Drake's little sister, is really annoying here. Trust me, when we get to like season 3 or so, she gets really annoying, but she's fine here. However, the reason this is, while kind of high, meh, is because, well, really, the episode does have some filler-ish moment and just some stupid lines and segments, occasionally anyway. Like the fact that the girl Drake likes is so shallow when Josh is nearly killed by this Buffy dude. As we go along these shows, you'll know that besides like 1 or 2 episodes, Dan really makes the girls on the shows be really shallow and just pathetic. It's sad, honestly. But back to this, I also find the one scene where Drake and Josh find water because they ate spaghetti with hot sauce to be some admittedly really bad filler. Yeah, it's amusing, but it has nothing to do with anything else in the episode. So yeah, this is an okay episode. It's close to being good, but because of just some starting elements that don't fare with me and just some really bad filler occasionally, this is just an okay episode. Definitely better than the next episode. Episode 2, Dune Buggy. Drake and Josh get a Dune Buggy and they start playing with it until Drake hurts himself by damaging it. Wow, let me just come out and say that this episode is meh, but golly was it so close to being Batty McFatty. Why? Because honestly, the story is lame and predictable. The ending is so stupid, it makes no sense. It just makes Walter and Aubrey, their mom, just incredibly stupid. The fact that Josh is just caught for everything and Drake gets away is just annoying. And this episode just angers me at points of how stupid the plot can be. However, to its credit, it does have funny moments, and I believe there aren't any filler moments in this episode. I won't give out specific lines, but there are occasional times where I legit laughed at Drake's antics, and that's why this is a meh episode. But golly, there are a lot of things I do not like in this episode. Episode 3, Believe Me, Brother. A girl who fell in love with Drake is now starting to like Josh. So, for some reason, this episode and the rest of season 1 haven't aired on TV for like 5 years. It's so odd, but thankfully I've seen all these episodes one way or another. However, this and the episode after the next one are the ones that I least remember. And honestly, I'm not as elaborate with the next episodes because I haven't seen any of them in a long time. However, I do remember some parts, and I can safely say that this is a good episode. It's not great, and it was dangerously close to being meh, but I still find it to be entertaining and it has an interesting story. And that's all I have to say. It's not fantastic, but it's better than the last two episodes. Episode 4, Two Idiots and a Baby. Even though Josh is kind of smarter than Drake. But anyway, Drake and Josh have to watch a baby but have some struggles with it. So obviously this is a watching the baby trope, and I think this episode does it near perfection. The gags here, while not laugh out loud funny, are really entertaining, and it's just funny to see how Drake and Josh play out this trope. I also like how they incorporate the aspect of Drake's band into this. I just think the story is balanced well with the comedy. So yes, this is of course a good episode, and miles better than what we've looked at so far. Unfortunately, I can't say the same about the next episode. Episode 5, First Crush. Josh has his first crush and accidentally says that he can play guitar, but that's Drake's thing. One cool thing about this episode is that the girl that's in this episode is played by Aaron Chambers, who's in NCIS Los Angeles, Scandal, etc. I don't watch neither of these shows, but that's just a little tidbit. No, that's just the that's not the biggest thing. I'm just gonna get straight to it. This is a Fatty McFatty episode. Why? First off, this episode's comedy is so bland, and this entire episode is so forgettable. The only line I can remember from this episode is the line of "Headaches! You give me headaches!" And to be fair, it's amusing, but everything else is just ugh. Second of all, I'm pretty sure it's unrealistic for someone about 15 to have a crush now. Josh may have been asexual this entire time. If that's the case, why would he not act so awkward around Tiffany in the pilot? It's just so stupid when you think about it. And lastly, Megan is annoying here. The whole snake gag just not funny, and not only do snakes kind of freak me out, especially anacondas and boas. I mean, I'm not scared of them, but if I was in front of one, I would just run away as quickly as possible. Or if I did run away, sorry, back on topic. It's just a stupid gag. Back on topic, this is just a lame episode. Consider it on the lighter side of Batty McFatty, but golly, this is just a bore to sit through, and it's not funny. Episode 6, Grammy. Josh's grandma comes and visits, but she starts to beat on Drake. Now, if you thought Two Idiots and a Baby was funny, this episode is absolutely hilarious. Even though I haven't seen this since like 5 years ago, I do distinctly remember this episode. All the gags. All of the gags are really funny, and it's just so rewarding, especially looking at the future of the show, to see someone harp on Drake, and finally a girl not finding him charming. I just love this episode. It's a good episode, and that's a huge understatement. Episode 7, The Bet. Drake and Josh, and soon the parents too, bet each other that Drake can't stop eating sweets, and Josh can't stop playing video games. Not gonna lie, judging by the circumstances of their appearances, you'll expect the other way to happen, but whatever. Before I get on with it, I should say that the first half is kind of boring and a little bit forgettable, but the rest of this episode is absolutely fantastic. In the first half, you see Josh playing the game Sphere, which is an obvious parody of potentially my favorite console of all time, while Drake is legit eating a bowl of cereal with sugar on it. Ugh. Anyway, this part is fine, it's just that when I see this episode, I just wait for when they actually compete. So soon they actually bet to see who will fail to live without their addictions for a week or so, and the person who loses will die. Their hair. However, soon Drake gets a rash from having a contrast of the usual diet, and honestly, I don't even think that's logical. Yeah, like I said, the first half is fine, just not incredible. Soon Walter and Audrey find out about the bet, and they soon bet on each other's son will fail the other, or something like that. Now this is where things get real. This is where Drake and Josh compete against each other, but at the end, Josh turns their room into a candy wonderland, Willy Wonka style, to intimidate Drake. What I love about this episode is when they wrestle, they just fall and splash onto the chocolate pool. When that happens, I can't help but laugh. Soon Drake eats sweets like it ain't nobody's business, and Josh plays video games to his heart's content. Now, even though the beginning is a bit slow, this is a good episode. I like the comedy, I like how it plays out, and I can easily rewatch this episode. Episode 8, Guitar. After he accidentally explodes Drake's autographed new guitar, Josh tries to find another guitar for Drake. However, later, Devin hurts his hand and Drake has to fill in. I don't have much to say about this episode. It's not like it's incredibly bland, no, the complete opposite. This is a great episode. But at the same time, there's nothing really to talk about, really. It's just really, really good. A nice episode where Drake and Josh truly bond and the cool pack between them. And I like it. Not gonna lie, while Megan was a bit annoying in the last episode, she really does bother me on the fact that she squeals on Josh for no reason whatsoever. But that's really the only minor negative I can think of, or negative in this case. But besides that, this is a good episode, and I really, really love the effort that is put into it. Episode 9, Movie Job. Episode 9, Movie Job. Josh gets a job at the movie theater, but Drake soon gets the job, soon becomes a manager, and gets on Josh's nerves. While I think this episode is good, I don't think it's fantastic or anything, if I'm going to be completely honest. It may be because they recycled this formula in the late iCarly episode, and they screw it up terribly. But still, I don't hate Helen, but the fact she totally favors Drake and doesn't even care about Josh all that much is just. I just really feel bad for Josh at points. In this episode and in the series, I'm going to be completely honest. No, there's a lot of moments in this series I feel bad for Josh, but back on topic. On the other side, Megan isn't in this episode for the most of it. Crazy Steve has his first appearance, and he's really funny. Drake is still cool, and I like the plot. I just like how the episode, or the show in general, is paced. It doesn't rush itself like some of the later work in Dan Schneider's library. And I'm glad the writers can slow it down sometimes, have characters talk it out, and not have everything just have no pacing whatsoever. Ugh. I'm just curious, why did Dan Schneider just throw up his arms? Never mind, I'm just talking about his later stuff. It just bothers me so much. All right, sorry for the tangent there. The episode is funny and introduces elements that will continue on to the rest of the series, but I can call it good, but not much higher than that. Episode 10, Football. Josh joins the football team so he can be as cool as Drake, or just cooler than he already is now. There are a couple nice things I have to say about this episode. For one, Josh is the center of the football team. Well, at first he's I think assistant manager or something like that. I'm not sure. But later he is a center, and since, at this point in the time, Josh Peck is a bigger guy than now. Next, it does kind of make sense for him to be a center and start, blocking people, even though apparently according to the players, he somewhat sucked at it, but back on topic. Second thing is, the episode is really funny. Now, if I point out all the jokes that are funny, we'll be here forever, but I think this episode is just really good. Another thing is that Drake and Josh's bond is back here, and one thing I like about the show is that when these two really bond, it just feels like just a deep connection that I just really like it, and I can go on forever on just how much I just adore this friendship, and it was one of the selling factors of the show. So, with all that said, I will give it a good rating. I know this isn't a fan favorite, but honestly, I'm just loving it this entire time. Episode 11, Pool Shark. Josh learns how to do pool and becomes very skilled at it. Oh boy, this is a great episode. I'm not even gonna hide it. I love the story in this episode. It's cool to see Josh be skilled at something. It is very funny and very, very great in comedy. And it's just a great episode. I don't have much to say it. If you just realize that in season 2, there are a lot of episodes that really just don't bother me all that much. They're just good, fun stories. And I appreciate it. I really do. Episode 12, Smart Girl. Drake falls in love with I'm not going to say nerdy or geeky, let's just say a very smart girl. I'm just going to come out and say that this is a relatively high meh. It's not really that anything is wrong with the episode, it's just that, well, the story has so much potential with it, but they didn't reach the max. They did a decent enough job, and this was very close to being good, just that, Episode 13. Drake and Josh work with a movie star at the premiere. Yay. So let's just say this. I don't hate this episode. I really don't. I don't even think it should be that bad into Batty McFatty. In fact, I would just say it's a relatively low meh. If I'm going to be completely honest, even though they butchered this plot so badly in like other later episodes in the Schneiderverse, just this episode wasn't grand Grammy-year-old stuff. I mean, just it's honestly, I can do without it. First of all, the story it's okay, but not fantastic. I've seen better from the show, but it could be a lot worse. The comedy is okay. I mean, it's not laugh out loud stuff, but I mean, I wasn't daydreaming during it. The girl that plays the little actor or actress for this matter is a little bit annoying, but not Megan levels of intolerable. No, I'm not gonna lie, you guys. In the later season, Megan gets really annoying, especially the next season. Just spoiling this now, but anyway, And the biggest thing about this episode is that Helen has a new actor. I mean, it's just only in this one episode, and it's because of just filming things that it's a long, very, very long story. But Helen has this one new actor, and I'm going to be completely honest. They could at least try to make her look. I mean, she does not look like Yvette Nicole Brown, not that much at all. And I will give them that. I mean, I'd rather her just not be in this episode, but I mean, at least they try to have someone who just try to resemble it. The point is, I don't think it was just the smartest decision ever, and just makes it just very, very, very strange. So, like I said, this is a relatively low meh, but honestly, I can do without it. To remove this poor reputation due to twitching on live TV, Drake offers Josh to appear in his talent show audition and perform the song Soul Man. So this is another episode that hasn't appeared in ages. And why? I don't know. But like Believe Me Brother, this is regardless a good episode. Yeah, I really like this episode. It's not amazing or phenomenal. The comedy isn't the best in the world, and there are better episodes out there. But not gonna lie, really like this episode, and it's just another episode where I just love Drake and Josh's bond. So far this season, we're on a really, really good start. Episode 15, Driver's License. Josh gets his driver's license, but Drake takes advantage of it because he got a speeding ticket. Oh boy, this is an interesting episode because of how it just reaches from up and down, but overall I think it's a good episode. Why do I think this? Well, in terms of the good things, this is an incredibly funny episode. And one of them jokes is that this is around the time where Drake and Josh started tackling each other and fighting, and it is glorious. Oh my god. These jokes. Anyway, and also, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of laugh on the fact that Josh asked for a salad, which I'm sorry to make a second fat joke there, but you know, this is before he started losing weight, but anyway. But on the downside, Drake is a little bit annoying, and just the fact that once again we see him get all the girls. In fact, we see him in the next episode with that. Is a little bit aggravating, but you know what? It's still a good episode. I still like it. Unfortunately, I cannot say the same for the next episode. Episode 16, number one fan. A girl in Megan's campfire group falls in love with Drake. Oh, immediately Batty McFaddy. I'm sorry, guys. I'm so sorry for that non-subtle, if that's even a word, entrance there, but I just don't like this episode at all. Okay, in terms of first crush comparison's sake, I will say this episode isn't as boring and exhausting as that episode is. This episode has some identity with it, but still, something in me is saying that this episode is worse. Because, first of all, we've seen girls fall in love with Drake millions of times, and just seeing a little girl fall in love with him is just it's irritating at this point. Second of all, Megan is still annoying. I don't even understand it. Next, the comedy, while it's just, I mean, I've heard worse, but at the same time, it's not fantastic or anything. And this episode is just, honestly, a little bit boring, just like First Crush. Like I said, it's not nearly as boring and drowned out as First Crush, but still, it's just, I'm just not a fan of it at all. Episode 17, Mean Teacher. Drake falls in love with a girl who laughs a lot, only to find out it's this mean teacher's daughter. Yeah, this episode's interesting. So, first off, Mrs. Hafer is really hilarious. It's her first appearance, and I really like her. I find her very, very funny. It's very, very funny how it's just an opposite of Helen, who Helen doesn't care for Josh but loves Drake, while Mrs. Hafer, Helen doesn't really hate Josh, but Mrs. Hafer really hates Drake and loves Josh, and it's just hilarious. But anyway, and the comedy is just really good too. Most of the jokes work well except for a few, and actually that few is from the laughing stock in this episode. Look, this episode will be fine enough, and it was going to go away with the good, but since some of the future circumstances have affected it, I gotta give them meh. Really, because if you don't know, in one of the recent stuff that's still going, it's a character named Hudson in Game Shakers who has an obnoxious laugh too. And while this episode's fine, it's incredibly annoying with his laugh. It's a main character trait. Judging by how annoying that was, or how annoying it is now, it really affects this episode. And so, because of the idiotic directing and just bad script writing of the recent stuff, I have to give this episode meh. So blame Game Shakers, not me. Sorry about that last one, but it's a hair away from good, but still, it's okay. Episode 18, The Gary Grill, which is obviously a parody of the George Foreman Grill. That was so obvious. Drake and Josh start selling this product called the Gary Coleman Grill. However, some problems deal with these two guys named Buddy and Guy or something like that. And I'm gonna be honest, I will say this episode has Dune Buggy syndrome, in which it is okay. In other words, meh, but it was very, very close to being Batty McFaddy. Why? Because well, Dune Buggy, the thing with that is just it's frustrating to see Drake get away with all this stuff. In this episode, I just don't care if they'll plot at all. I don't know, just the mystery factor, the drama, and just like Dune Buggy, it's only saved because of the comedy. In fact, I really like the comedy in this episode. I don't know about you, but I think this episode is just as hilarious as everything else. But still, this episode isn't fantastic. It's not even good, really. But it can go away with a meh. But you know, if you don't like it, I can totally understand. Episode 19. Come on, guys, we're almost finished. Drew and Jerry. Drake and Josh meet counterparts named Drew and Jerry who look like them, act like them, and this is. I know it's been quite a while. It's been like 3 already now, or 2, but well, 3 counting this episode. But this is another meh episode. Now, this episode is so forgettable and boring. Oh my god. Well, I wouldn't go that far. It's not dreadful. If that's the case, I would have gave it something worse because honestly, the comedy is actually pretty good. I do like the one joke at the end with Josh, and the plot is interesting, just flawed. But the episode is really forgettable and not very interesting and not very funny. So yeah, you can see why it goes with a meh. Not much to say. That's all I have to say. Wait, was that a loophole or? Sorry. And lastly, we get to episode 20. Episode 20, Honor Council. Josh tries to bail Drake out of a convicted crime. Ha ha ha. I know I kind of exaggerated with that definition there, or really synopsis anyway, but really I can't think of anything else. I'm just so tired of this production of the video. I can't imagine the longer seasons of these shows. Ugh, God, I need therapy. Alright, but to end off the season, I think this episode is great, actually. I love the jokes, I love the plot. This is the first episode of Mindy, an awesome character. I kind of like how they had some sort of chemistry with her and Josh in next season, but that's for another time. I just love. There's nothing really wrong with this episode. I really like it. I can't really find that much negatives. It's a good episode. All right. Ugh. Finally, we're done. Episode 21, The Drake and Josh Inn. When Drake and Josh's parents are out on a vacation, they decide to turn the house into an inn called the Drake and Josh Inn. Now, before I get with the episode, I should analyze the differences between Season 3 and the first 2 seasons because there are quite a few differences, unlike Season 2, which only had better camera quality compared to Season 1, and it still wasn't that good. While the set movement wasn't as drastic as the movement from Orlando to Hollywood like it did with Kenan and Kel Season 3, it's still quite noticeable. The crew moved to another studio, and while the actual design of the place isn't that much different than before, it's very apparent that they got a new camera, just better film in the process. And thankfully, this is used for the rest of the edition out of the shows because it really looks a heck of a lot better than what the first 2 seasons had to offer. There's one more thing that's probably even more noticeable than the new camera, and you know where I'm going with this if you've seen the show. But Josh has considerably lost weight. If you couldn't tell, I made the Batty McFaddy bumper just to poke fun at his obesity in the first 2 seasons, but I will give him credit and say that he does look a little bit slimmer on Honor Council compared to Dune Buggy. But no, he has made some great progress in this season. I'm really proud of him. Alright, I'm done with the extra stuff. Now let's get to the episode. To be perfectly honest, as a season opener, this episode is just a slightly better version of Pilot. Now before we go on, I shall mention that unlike people like Pie Guy Rules or even Mr. Enter, I'm not one to focus so much on the story in these sitcoms or just shows based on comedy. However, I do want a competent story in a sitcom because with the premise, it can give a plethora of good jokes, or just jokes in general. The story in this episode is okay, I guess, but not marvelous or anything like that. For one, it does take quite a while for the episode to really get started. I'm glad there's at least a snippet of pacing, unlike Dan's later work, but they can still do the episode a little bit better. In terms of comedy, thankfully Drake and Josh still delivers on the goods. While it's not the funniest episode in the series or even in the season, there are some decently funny gags, such as Megan flipping Drake over and tripping Josh and the Por Favor robot. So in terms of comedy, I think this episode is great, but just the story seems so eh. It's not a bad story and it's definitely not a bad episode, but I just feel it's really unrealistic to turn a two-story house into an inn. And it seems like nobody really points it out. You know what, since this episode tries, and it's not unsatisfying to watch or anything like that, I will give it a relatively high meh rating. It's an episode that I can go back to again and again without any real critiques or problems with it, but I feel it could have been better. Episode 22, Peruvian Puff Pepper. Man, it's so hard to say. Drake and Josh go against Megan in a chili making competition, but they find out that she is using illegal substances. I like the joke at the end where the chili is all over the kitchen and Drake and Josh fight. And I do like the South America joke, that was pretty funny. But yeah, that's all I got. First Crush was boring. Number one fan just made me hate how shallow girls are in the show. But I wouldn't say any of those are terrible per se. However, I gotta say that this is a terrible episode. Yeah, I'm calling it. It's 30 minutes. There are so many things wrong with this episode. For one, besides like two minor jokes and also Drake checking himself out when searching through Megan's room, the comedy is really lame in this episode. I guess I chuckled at the part where Drake accidentally stuck the knife into Josh's hand, but even that, I'm more laughing at Josh's reaction, not the action itself. But besides that, the comedy is pretty bland. Not bad, just mediocre. However, what is bad about this episode is the story. It's awful. The plot doesn't even get started until like around halfway in. The main thing is that Megan is using an illegal drug-like pepper called the Peruvian puff pepper. We don't even see like any contact or any mention of this pepper, so the beginning just becomes some lame busy work. Before then, we get filler, which includes Josh making a chili, both the brothers going through her room and seeing anything suspicious. There's a lot of fluff that I don't approve of. However, what absolutely makes me hate this episode so much is Megan. This is easily Megan's worst appearance, not only in this season, but in the series. She is beyond awful in this episode, and the manipulation she does is just not funny at all. What's worse is that like before and after this episode, Walter and Audrey are clueless, and Megan is never called out or caught once in this episode. No, except for Drake and Josh, but the parents never believed them. This episode made me hate Megan and the parents because of how flanderized they were in this episode. Granted, I hate Megan in another episode this season, and just like this, it kills the episode. But even still, this is a terrible and terribly written episode. I know it's kind of redundant, but oh well. Episode 23, We're Married! Drake accidentally marries Josh's e.v.a.n through some misfortunes, I guess. Despite the lack in description I made for this episode, I actually find this episode to be really good. In fact, it's really, really good. Yeah, it's redundant, but I'm going on anyway. If anything, it kind of reminds me of Kenan and Kel, specifically that season 3 episode, Poem Sweet Poem. A girl is destined to love somebody but ends up dating another guy out of complete inconvenience. Granted, I like that episode, so it's not a bad thing at all. In fact, you're going to notice that in this season, there's a lot of parallels with Kenan and Kel, and it's 50-50 on how good and bad it is, but I digress. The plot is really good in this episode, and unlike the episodes before, the pacing is perfect. And thankfully, a majority of the season and the show, to be honest, has really good pacing. Look, I don't care for pacing all that much in shows, and I just want to mention it in the first 3 episodes just to prove my point that it can go up and down with this season. In terms of comedy, this is a very funny episode. From Drake about to put out the fire by peeing on it, to Yuko watching the foreign film 42 times, to just Drake saying he's gonna boil his face after Josh kisses him on the cheek. Granted, that scene I don't have a problem with, but there's a similar scene in season 4 that's much worse. But either way, the comedy is magnificent in this episode. To be honest, I really don't have much problems with this episode. The only thing that inherently bothers me is the fact of course, a girl has to like Drake instead of Josh, but honestly, I kind of understand it in this episode. It's more than the shallow, Drake's so cute! Anyways, this episode is definitely a great episode. Episode 24, Mindy is back. Mindy is back from being suspended and now is going out with Josh. This episode is good, but not by much. I don't know how to describe it. The plot is fine, the comedy is fine, it's harmless. Like, I won't even say it's bland. It's just an episode that I watch and kind of forget what happens. It's fine, I just want to move on. Call this review lazy, and I will admit that it's kind of lacking compared to anything before or anything afterwards. but it's just a good episode, nothing less, nothing more. I will say that I think the ending is a little funny, but kind of cringy at the end, but overall, it's a good episode. Just, man, I need a job. Episode 25, The Affair. Drake and Josh speculate that Walter may be cheating on Audrey. Yeah, I got her name right, but in reality, it's a job opportunity. I'm starting to realize that this is one of the more infamous episodes of the show, and while I can kind of see problems with it, I don't really hate it that much. I find it to be pretty good, actually. For one, the story is really, really slow in the first half, and it's kind of bothersome, to be honest. Also, the fact that Audrey, the mom, isn't really involved with the story a lot, despite the fact that, it's an affair we're talking about, is kind of bland. But overall, I still enjoy this episode. It has its problems, and the ending is also really dumb. Like, the punishment is to put Walter's dinner or his spaghetti or whatever on their faces. But still, I really enjoy this episode. Episode 26, Playing the Field. Drake breaks up with the girl but ends up regretting his decision. Meanwhile, Josh grows a mustache but makes Mindy awkward around him. This episode is just like Mindy's back. It's really forgettable, it's not really offending or anything like that. That being said, I do think this episode is a little bit more forgettable than Mindy's back, but it is slightly funnier than Mindy's back, so I will say this episode is good too, but it's a hair away from meh. It has good ideas, but I feel like it could have been better. I will say, I do find the overall premise of this episode really interesting, and the subplot with Josh's mustache is amusing at first, but as it goes on, it just gets really, really monotonous, as most of the comedy in that subplot is based on his mustache only. It's not bad, it's good, but this episode really doesn't give me a reason to come back to it, sadly. Episode 27, Helen's Surgery. Helen gets laser eye surgery, and Drake and Josh have to watch over her condo. Or at least Josh has to, and Drake just barges into the plot. This episode just annoys me. It's not terrible or anything. There are just things that bother me in the other episodes that come back here. Helen favoring Drake over Josh for no real good reason. Check. Shallow girls loving Drake over Josh. Check. Josh admittedly being flanderized a bit by being so demanding in this episode. There's so much in this episode that I gotta give it a... It's not awful or anything, it's not as atrocious as some things before, but it's just so lacking in quality that I just can't enjoy it. It's not that funny, I can't recall a single joke that I liked other than Megan's ideas coming to life at the end, and also the "that is not my job" running gag is funny too, but I'll give it that. But other than that, the comedy is not stellar, and most importantly, this episode is not stellar. Episode 28, Paging Dr. Drake. Drake impersonates the doctor in order to meet some girls, I guess. One thing that I really hate, I mean really hate, is the fact that in one point Josh's foot is exposed after it being incredibly bruised when, a dumbbell fell on it, even though it looks so fake. While I appreciate the artistic effort, it's just so gross. It's not that gross that I skip over the scene when I watch it, but it wouldn't hurt if they could just, make the foot red, but like with blue shading or something like that. That being said, I really like this episode. Like The Affair, this has an infamous reputation, not as much as The Affair, but still, it's worth noting. But I still find it good. In terms of story, yeah, I'm not gonna lie, Drake being a doctor, or pretending to be a doctor for that matter, is something a little too malicious that he would do. But he's still being a laid back guy, so it's not like he's being too flanderized. It's not like he went from a violent to still lovable person to someone who actually treats fourth graders like slaves in order to make branded shirts, disregarding child labor laws. But nah, Dan Schneider would never do that. Anyways, not gonna lie, I kinda laughed on the fact that Josh bruises his foot after Drake shoots him with a potato cannon. Though sadly, another flaw with this episode is that the illusion of the dumbbell hitting Josh, like I said, is very, very... I'm ready to say fake or weak, so I'm just gonna say feek or wake. I kinda like wake more. Yeah, let's go with wake. Not like I wanted Josh Peck to hurt his foot, but at the same time, when Josh was screaming about it, the dumbbell didn't even hit his foot yet. Minor thing, but still gotta point it out. Also, I'll say this right now, but this is one of the few episodes in the entire show where the parents don't suck. Yeah, that's just something to point out. That was a really bad segue, but you know what? Let's just keep going. This is a good episode, and yeah, nothing else to say, really. Episode 26, Foam Finger. Drake and Josh have a feud because of an incident with a foam finger that happened 8 years ago. Or at least during the time of the episode 8 years ago. This episode is just... It's so bad. I can't even understand why any writer would approve of that. Fine, fine, I'll be real. This episode is just awesome. I think it's just near perfect. I think this is not just one of the best episodes this season, but one of the best episodes this entire show. The premise alone, the comedy, the chemistry with Drake and Josh, the hilarious ending, the fact that this is probably Megan's best major appearance, the fact that I like Walter and Audrey the most this season. There's a lot to love here. I can't even think of a single flaw with this episode. Maybe the fact that it's a little bit too mean-spirited, but honestly, the comedy does kind of hide it, and you know, it's not that bad that it's just disgusting to watch. It's a very good episode. Episode 30. Girl power. Drake dates a girl who is a decent fighter, but clashes with Josh's date with Mindy's parents. You know, I won't lie, this episode is very interesting to me. There are two big things in this episode that usually sitcoms either totally get wrong or just make it a complete mess. Heck, Dan Schneider falls victim to both of these in his later work, but we'll get to that when we get to that. Those things are female empowerment and the intertwining stories. This episode showcases a tomboy, or at least a girl who sticks up for herself, and her name is Lucy, and is actually ready to fight someone when needed. You see, most sitcoms, mainly kids sitcoms, have something similar, but it can end up being incredibly dumb or just so forced. Looking at you, Bella and the Bulldogs, ugh. Anyway, yeah, Drake's girlfriend is quite the fighter. In fact, they both outright fight for a majority of the episode, and yet it doesn't seem awkward at all, and they don't make too many cringy jokes about it. So I will give the episode props on that. I will also give the episode props for having multiple stories happening, but not making it too, what's the word, noticeable. What I mean is basically there's a plot where Josh has dinner with Mindy and her parents, and he tries to adapt to the mature surroundings, I guess you can call it, or sophisticated surroundings. Also, Mindy's parents are a lot more elegant than Walter and Audrey, so the writing is pretty good in terms of character interactions. Meanwhile, Drake and Lucy are fighting to see who's stronger, men or women. In the end, it ends up being basically a tie, but even still, at least there's some action. Also, Megan and her friends are watching all of this. Yes, another episode where Megan is bearable. Finally, keep this going, writers. Keep this going. Keep this going. Either way, the plot is really good in this episode. So is the episode funny? Yes, actually. From Drake's line, "You spent $100 on ice," to Josh wearing his underwear on top of his pants. Overall, the satire is pretty solid. So overall, good episode. Episode 31, Sheep Thrills. Drake and Josh raise a sheep under Megan's will. This episode, like Helen's surgery, just annoys me. It's not god-awful or anything. For what it's worth, it's not an abomination like Peruvian puff pepper, but it just rehashes the problem that I've had since the beginning of the show, and it's only worse in season 3. And that is the repetitive gag of Megan doing something complicated or dumb, only to get away with it. To be frank, there's only two problems with this episode, really. One is Megan's arrogance and the stupid shtick again, and another is the fact that it's not really that funny, honestly. Those two factors sadly make me not like this episode, so yeah. I will say though that probably the best part of this episode is that one dream sequence. It's so abstract and so dumb that I love it. Also, I will admit that most of the episode is really meh quality, but the fact that we've seen the same Megan does something either complicated or dumb and Drake and Josh take blame for stick over and over, it's just so pathetic, honestly. Episode 32, Megan's new teacher. Josh ends up being a student teacher in Megan's class but becomes very annoying. I'll cut to the chase. This episode is really, really good. I do find it funny in the last episode. I hate Megan with a burning passion, but here I really like her. If I'm going to be honest, this is another episode in season 4. The only episodes where I not only like Megan, but I actually feel sorry for her in a sense. Granted, in this case, it's kind of comedic and satirical on why I feel bad for her, but I do feel emotion in a later episode, but it's just worth noting. We have a whole season to get through, you know. In terms of plot, yeah, it's a little bit straightforward than most episodes. It's not really a subplot exactly. It's just the main plot that includes Josh and Megan and a small side thing with Drake and another kid that soon gets into the main plot. Now, what really drives this episode home is the comedy. The kids calling Josh a hobo when he's dressed like Einstein, to Drake making shadow puppets when he and Megan sneak into the classroom, to Megan's friends pounding a piñata that has Josh's face on it, to one of Josh's experiments blowing up on the teacher. There's a lot to love here. I'm truly want to believe that a basic plot can totally be made up by great comedy. Heck, why else do people enjoy pre-movie SpongeBob so much? But that's besides the point. The point is that this is a great episode. Episode 33, Little Sibling. Drake and Josh try to fight for the affections of a young kid. Yeah, I know that Bido sounded off, but overall, I kind of feel the same way with this episode, the same I do for Minnie's back and playing the field. Granted, I like this episode more than both of those, so I still think it's good, but come on, they could do better than this. I will admit Josh's interaction with Sammy does pull on my heartstrings a bit, but I really don't have much with this episode. It's just harmless, not terrible, not amazing, just good. Episode 34, Theater Thug. Josh is mistaken as a criminal from TV and is constantly getting arrested. I'm ready to say that this episode is absolutely hilarious. Almost all the jokes work, and seeing Josh get tortured. I don't know what happened here, but in my opinion, this episode is just hot garbage. For one, this episode is so repetitive, and I mean so repetitive. 90% of this episode is Josh getting over and over arrested. Even in the ending where he is outright seen with the real theater thug, he still gets arrested. The satire itself is repetitive as well. Most of the jokes are Josh getting arrested. Most of the jokes are Josh getting arrested. Most of the jokes are Josh getting arrested. Granted, the jokes that aren't Josh getting arrested, for the most part, are really funny, such as Drake and Megan trying to think of a plan to disguise Josh. Secondly, this is a minor thing, but there's this one running gag in this scene where the writers kind of make fun of Josh's weight. One that's downright insulting, especially the fact that Josh Peck has really worked hard to lose that weight, and this is a season where it's noticeable. Secondly, it's not like the obesity of Josh in the first two seasons was with the show's premise, like Chrissy Metz as Kate and This Is Us. No, it's just something they don't address. Thirdly, if it was just one joke, it would be not that much of a problem, but they keep continuing and continuing, going on, and it just gets irritating, beyond insulting. It's just, ugh. Not to mention, Josh was fat in the original seasons, but he wasn't a watermelon like the script shows it to be. And lastly, this episode just makes me so sorry for Josh. He does absolutely nothing in this episode. He's just beaten down like this. It's not funny, it's just irritating. So yeah, this is a terrible episode. I don't want to watch it ever again. Episode 35, The Demonator. Drake, Josh, and Megan have to wait in line to ride a roller coaster called The Demonator. That's it. This episode, oh my gosh, what is up with this season just having episodes that I just have nothing to say about them? They're just harmless. I don't get it. But at the same time, this is another one that just irritates me. I will say that this episode is much better than Hell in Surgery and Sheep Thrills, so it's going to get a low meh rating, but it's still underwhelming. I will say that the satire is pretty okay, not laugh out loud to be frank, but it's still something. Lastly, this episode is just another one of those episodes where Megan can just walk scot-free while Drake and Josh get the worst of the worst. I'm sick of this plot at this point. And you want to know the best part? Guess what? They do it again in the very next episode. Episode 36, Alien Invasion. Drake and Josh pull a prank on Megan, making her think that there are aliens invading. Hey, guess what? This episode sucks. This episode is just another episode that makes me hate Megan and the stupid shtick again. I know I sound repetitive at this point, but that's what happens when a season keeps going with the same problem over and over in episodes like this. If anything, most of the problems I have with Peruvian Puff Pepper are right here in full force. Lackluster plot, pretty lame comedy, and once again, hate Megan in this episode. For what it's worth, however, the main problem with the episode is that it's just incredibly boring for me. Then, yeah, it would be worse than Peruvian Puff Pepper if it was frustrating, but it's still not. Even though the comedy is kind of bad, there is a magnificent total of 3 jokes that I liked in this episode. One was Josh writing on a notepad and Drake giving the idea of putting Megan in a freezer. That was pretty funny. Another was Josh popping out of a trash can while it was filled with junk while Drake came out of it empty-handed. Lastly, when the alien scares Walter in the end, that was really funny too. Other than that, this episode is just... ugh. Thankfully, we're almost done with this arduous run. Ugh. Episode 37, Dr. Phyllis Show. Dr. Phyllis, forget it. Drake and Josh go on a talk show to work out their problems. I really need to do a better job with descriptions in these reviews. I may just copy them from TV.com or maybe IMDb or whatever. Anyways, this episode it's fantastic. Good is an understatement. While I won't lie, it is lacking in the story, all of it is made up on how funny this episode is. Now, since it's a clip show, you would expect it to be a bit lame, but no. This episode actually has some really good funny clips from this season and the last, but no season 1 for some reason. I'm going to be real and say that I don't have much to say about this episode since the majority of it is a clip show, but this is a marvelous episode. Also note that this episode, besides the comedy, is also really good in terms of Drake and Josh's character interactions. Granted, most of it is them bickering or fighting, and it is a good parody on, all those bickering and just different feuds on therapy and just therapy shows like Dr. Phil. Overall, I gotta say this is a really good episode. Really good. Really good. Good on ya. Episode 38. Josh runs into Oprah. For his birthday, Josh gets to meet Oprah Winfrey, but ends up driving into her. This episode, I don't like it. I really don't. Yeah, I'm just going to get straight to it. This is episode. It is a bit sad that this is the first time where the first episode is a bad episode, but oh well, I'm sticking to my guns. Anyway, the problem with this episode is that it just continues another running gag that continued throughout the show, but really got noticeable in the last season. It's not Megan's attitude or the repetitive gag of her getting away with anything. If anything, she barely appears in this episode. But Drake getting away with things scot-free while Josh getting nothing or is punished. To be fair, not exactly like that in this episode. It's more so of Josh getting something he liked only for him to get punished for liking it. Think of post-movie Squidward and you may get what I mean. Besides the running gag, there are many minor things in this episode that bother me. For one, there's this one scene where Josh outright kisses Drake on the lips after he gets the ticket for the show, and I'm not a homophobe, but just the way it's executed is just so cringy. Also, Megan's line afterwards doesn't really make things better. Secondly, when Josh actually runs into Oprah, I'm going to be quite honest, I wish they could have tried to get a better looking actress or one that resembled Oprah more. Lastly, the episode is not that funny. Josh's happiness for Oprah and the sarcasm towards Drake is a little bit funny, but most of the jokes are just Josh getting tortured or, like I said, just getting punished for liking something. And overall, it's just not a good episode at all. Episode 39, Vicious Tiberius. Drake and Josh have to watch over Mrs. Hafer's house, but as while doing so, they encounter her vicious Rottweiler, or dog if you don't know what a Rottweiler is. This episode, it's fantastic. Yep, this is a very good episode. In a way, this episode is kind of like a cat and mouse plot, or even something similar to old SpongeBob. Yes, I mentioned SpongeBob twice in this episode. Shut up. This plot is very simple, but at the same time does give a good reason for things to happen. However, what really sells this episode is the comedy. The comedy is really good, from Drake not knowing what New Jersey is, to Josh letting Drake slam into a door just because he didn't say go. There's a lot to love here. Another thing I like about this episode is the story. You see, even though 95% of this episode is in Mrs. Hafer's house, there's a very subtle subplot that comes along and helps the guys in the end. Walter told them to, the dad, to pick up Megan from oboe practice, and at the end, Megan just shows up at the place knowing Josh and Drake are there. I don't get why they needed to pick her up when she literally just walked from practice to the house, but oh well. The point I'm trying to make is that this episode has a pretty good story, and overall, it's a really nice episode. It's very funny, has a pretty good story, and has a very good premise, and it's just really fun to watch. Episode 40, The Wedding. Drake and Josh have to go to their grandma's wedding, but they have some serious car troubles. Oh boy, this episode is so boring. Like, it's funny how in the last episode, them being in the same place benefits the episode, but in this one, it's just a serious flaw. Since for most of the episode, Drake and Josh are just walking around in a small little spot in the middle of nowhere, might I add, there's not really much that's going on. Josh is just being witty, and Drake is just being stupid. I mean, there is some good comedy here, such as Drake making fun of this truck driver for his name Leslie, despite the fact that the plot literally could have been solved right there and then had he not made fun of his name. That's another thing, the conflict isn't really resolved. At the end, the car is just lit with flames, really, and there's no reason for it, and I don't know if it's a gas leak or what, but either way, there's no reason explained on why the car should be on fire. And Drake and Josh just walk to the place, like, I guess, they just get off screen while it bursts into flames. In terms of positives, the first scene was pretty funny, and throughout the episode, it does have some pretty good comedy. It's not the best ever, but at least I'm a little bit entertained. I won't say the entire episode is mundane, because, the comedy does keep me entertained a little bit, but it's just so boring. It's episode 41, Mindy Loves Josh. Josh and Mindy have some relationship problems once competition gets in the way. I will admit, this is one of the few episodes where my thoughts on it have drastically changed over time. I will admit, I first thought this episode was meh, as I thought it was not that funny, kind of boring, and a bit cliche to be honest. But after a rewatch and just analyzing it on its own, I think this is a really good episode. For one, I do appreciate the fact that Josh and Mindy's chemistry is in the spotlight in this episode. In fact, it's really the first time since playing the field where, it's been in the spotlight, really. And even then, that was a subplot in that episode, but I digress. I just think that these guys are a really good couple. I'm always supportive of this. It's just a shame that couples in the future shows, besides maybe Beck and Jay and Victorious, are really shallow and very underdeveloped, but I'll get to that later. Anyway, back to the episode. In terms of comedy, it's decent. It's not one of the funniest episodes, but I did get a good amount of laughs in. The only real standout joke is the running gag with the lasers in the wall, and the janitor getting frustrated with cleaning it up. I think the story is the main focus of the episode, which is not really a bad thing, as long as the story is good. Well, the story is really good. Everything seems to be pretty nicely paced, and none of the characters seem out of order, so there's nothing really wrong here. However, this episode isn't perfect, as it is a little bit boring during the middle, and the episode is a little bit forgettable, but overall, it's still a good episode. Episode 42. Who's got game? Drake and Josh make a bet on who can get the most girls by the end of the week. Yeah, you can already tell that this is a bit similar to the bet from season 2. Not a bad thing since I love that episode. I wouldn't say this is a ripoff. Trust me guys, there are going to be a lot of ripoffs and hack writing and Dan's later work. Oh, I can't wait. Heck, most ripoffs come from this show, but one step at a time now. But anyway, while I don't think this episode is as good as the bet, I still find this episode to be pretty good. Firstly, I gotta admit that this episode is one of the few, or this may be another episode, first being We're Married and second being Now, where Drake's girl issue is actually a bit relatable and not just a shallow, he's so cute scenario. In fact, this may be one of my favorite episodes when it comes down to Drake. He's not downright idiotic or kind of malicious occasionally. He's very charming. He has a little bit of idiocy, but he's not really his standout traits. And he seems genuine about his feelings towards a girl, and I like it. Meanwhile, I love how Josh tries so hard in the episode, or in the beginning with this one girl, that's basically both lactose intolerant and vegetarian, which kind of shows because she's a little bit skinny, but I digress. Overall, this episode is pretty good story-wise and also pretty decent comedy-wise. This episode is really good all around, and yeah, there's not much to say about it. Episode 43, The Great Doheny. Josh gets to meet one of his favorite magicians, Henry Doheny. However, at the end, something goes wrong with the magic trick, and he kills him. Quote unquote, kills him. Oh boy, this episode is it's just stupid. I don't know how else to put it. It's just so bad. It's just so confusing too, but not in a funny way. I just don't understand it. Well, to be fair, the first half of it is pretty decent. Nothing too special, but it's cool for Josh to meet one of his idols. I mean, it's been known since the last season that Josh liked magic, so it fits. However, it's the actual magic show itself that makes this episode fall apart terribly. First of all, Megan, of course, tells Mr. Doheny about a really cool trick, so he pulls it off in the show. So apparently this trick was supposed to fool someone into thinking that by sticking a sword into a box, instead of it not hurting, it actually kills them. But in the end, it didn't kill him. Like, you see where I'm getting at? I mean, this would be stupid already, but if it were just at the show and then afterwards Doheny reveals it was just a prank, then that's fine. But this carries on with a freaking funeral. That's where it gets really, really confusing. In the quote-unquote funeral, Doheny just pops in midair, and it's not really funny. He just pops in with some smoke, and like if he came out with some curtains or something, it would be kind of clever. But I don't expect 100% realism in these shows, but I don't mind wacky elements. But if you're gonna do that, then don't be stupid with it. Another thing I don't like about this episode is that honestly, it's kind of repetitive. Before the magic show, the guy does crash into their house, and the usual have an annoying person crash in your house gag pitch in, and it's so lame. Some of it is funny, I guess, and the first half, like I said, is alright, but this is not a very good episode comedy-wise, and especially story-wise. Overall, yeah, this episode really sucks. I don't think it's the worst thing out there, but it's just so bad. It's so confusing. I hate it. Yeah, it's a bad episode. Episode 44. I love Lucy. I love sushi. Drake and Josh have to work at a sushi place in order to get their furniture back. Yeah, even before looking at the trivia section of this episode on the Drake and Josh wiki, I knew on the go that this has a really, really big problem. This episode is an admittedly shameful recycle of Attack of the Bugman from Kenan and Kel. I will admit that We're Married and Poem Sweet Poem were kind of similar, but were very different. Here, this is a clear ripoff of Attack of the Bugman. And to be perfectly honest, I prefer the other episode much more, and that's saying much since the first half of the episode was really dumb and unfunny. It got better in the second half, but even still, the episode just started off really bad and really samey. Obviously, the plot recycling will bring this episode down. I mean, sure, there are obvious differences like Walter and Audrey being out due to the wedding anniversary, while Roger, Cheryl, and Kyra being out due to Kyra getting straight A's. Also, Drake and Josh have to actually work so they can get their stuff back, while Keenan and Kel just contact the police but have to stall their parents and Kyra for them to come back. You get to see the episode to get what I mean, but anyway, besides the plot recycling, unfortunately, I don't really like anything else in this episode, to be honest. To be fair, it's not really offensive or anything. It's not too stupid like the last episode, but it's not incredibly funny like Vicious Tiberius. There's just not enough for me to be invested. I will say that the episode isn't outright terrible. In fact, I don't even think it's really that bad. But overall, I'll be nice and just say it's a meh episode, but it's not that far off from Batty McFaddy. Episode 45, The Storm. Drake and Drake then, has some people caved in his house, or their house. I'll get to that later. As there's a huge rainstorm in the area. So one thing that's very, very noticeable about this episode is that Josh only appears in the beginning of the episode, and afterwards he doesn't appear again. Yes, he is mentioned many times since, he's one of the main protagonists, but not gonna lie, it really, really brings down this episode. Not only out of the duo do I like Josh more, but there's not really a point to him not being there. He's just not there. I don't know why is he not there. Did Josh Peck get sick? Anyway. Not only that, but I feel like Josh would have saved an otherwise meh episode. I don't have much to say about this episode, to be honest. I feel there are good things within this episode, like the We Will Rock You or Let's Get This Party Started rendition at the end. And also there are some good jokes like Crazy Steve watching Dora the Explorer. That was pretty funny. It's just, it has the same problem with the wedding where since everybody's in the same setting, there's not that much that happens other than rain and lighting effects. It's funny because I think the wedding is funnier than this, but at the same time, there's a little bit more going on, so I don't know. Overall, yeah, this episode's pretty meh. It's not good, but it's not bad. Episode 46, My Dinner with Bobo. Drake and Josh have to save an orangutan from being eaten by a doctor. I'm not even joking. Alright, so let's just get this out of the way. An orangutan is an ape, not a monkey. Doesn't bother me now, but my god, it bothered me every time someone called a gorilla or a chimp or whatever a monkey. Guys, if it doesn't have a tail, then it's not a monkey. It's just an ape. Now shut up. Another thing, and this is minor, but the way Drake, Josh, and Megan come across Bobo in the first place is there. I'm guessing that Bobo appears in the Stan the Carman commercials along Stan himself, but it's not really clear. Other than that, I don't have much to say about this episode, really. In terms of jokes, I really like the ending where the three are in a goofy, girly car. I like the Bluetooth joke, I like how Helen is fine with Drake setting up the Bobo booth, but she hates it when Josh is behind it. It's probably one of the only instances where Helen's love for Drake is actually a little bit funny. To be fair, it was a little bit funny too. A movie job, heck, that's why it's a good episode, but it's not one of my higher good episodes, so. And also, Megan's not that annoying. It is a bit irritating that in most episodes I have to make sure that she isn't annoying, and unfortunately, this is basically a tradition that's going to continue with the next shows. But I digress. What I really like about this episode is just the tone of it, really. Yeah, it's funny just seeing a little ape crawling around and interacting with the surroundings. It's just so cute. At least it's really cute to me. And it really brings up this episode, honestly. It's just a touching episode. It just kind of pulls on the heartstrings a bit. And overall, this is a pretty good episode. And a very touching one, at least for me personally. Episode 47, Treehouse. Drake and Josh are stuck in a treehouse. That's it. Okay, yes, they basically blew up this one kid's treehouse with a rocket, but for most of the episode, they're just stuck in a treehouse trying to get out. This is a pretty good episode. This is another episode of Season 4 where it seems a bit lacking in the setting. Yes, another one. And unfortunately, kind of like the wedding and the storm, it's a big flaw. The treehouse isn't really aesthetically interesting, just wood with one shade of brown, which is a bit basic, but it's not a big deal. And just like other episodes, it's not really the plot itself that makes the episode really good, even though I do like how the episode progresses overall. It's a decent comedy that really sells it. Drake keeps saying con instead of cone, and Josh getting attacked by a squirrel. He had no problem tying a note on the squirrel's tail when, he was afraid of squirrels, but okay then. I will admit another thing that brings it down is Megan. Again, she's not really unbearable like the last season. She doesn't really prank anybody. But I don't know, it just seems really arrogant in this episode. But even still, I still think this is a pretty good episode. Not fantastic, not amazing. Heck, it's not even that far from meh. But even still, I like this episode. Episode 48. Josh is done. Josh is finally done with Drake being careless and now doesn't want to talk to him. Heck, is that brutal to the point that Josh only refers to him as a roommate and not even a brother? So this episode is just, I gotta say, this episode is, it's just, I feel that I should go through the episode itself and not just analyze it as a whole off the bat. Okay, so in the beginning, Drake and Josh play ping pong when they should be studying for this chemistry exam they have the next day. The next day, Drake leaves the house before Josh can get a ride to make out with his girlfriend, and that makes Josh understandably frustrated. So I will admit that the beginning is pretty decent. It's not remarkable, admittedly, but it's a good way for the episode to get started. Also, I like the smash the window transparency joke that Drake said. Anyway, after school, Drake apologizes to Josh, but Josh tells him that he's officially done with Drake. Drake is confused on why Josh is done with him, but he soon goes through the episode realizing that his life is much better without him. Now this is where I take pause. Why would Drake's life suddenly be miserable, but Josh's life is awesome? Oh yes, because we see that Drake relies on Josh way too much. For example, there's this one subtle case of irony that I didn't realize until a couple months ago, where Drake says he got $10 to get out of the house unaware that movie tickets were $11. I hate to ruin the joke, but basically means that Josh, working at Premiere, basically gave Drake those tickets each time. Through most of the episode, it does paint the picture that Drake does need Josh in his life, and it does pretty well. Even looking back at it, I start realizing that Josh did help Drake get some girls too. And he helped him go on a date with this one smoking hot chick in driver's license, helped him on trivia and Smart Girl, got him to unintentionally go on a date with a foreign girl and we're married, etc. So there's a reason that Drake is kind of alone here, despite the fact that he had a girlfriend earlier in this episode, but it's a minor thing. Alright, so here we get to, I'm not sure if this is the rising action or the climax to be honest, since the ending scene is right afterwards, but in the scene at school, a couple things go down. Firstly, the teacher decides not to lower Josh's grades since he got every question right or something like that. The class has to do this lab, and of course, Josh being fed up with Drake, he switched lab partners. Drake has to work with this kid who mumbles too much, but eventually gets a ton of chemicals onto his hands. So I guess in a way, this is payback for getting Josh in a chemical bath in an earlier episode, but I digress. So Drake gets one of those safety showers and then he snaps. Right here is where, fine, I'll spoil it. Right here is when I officially call this not only a good episode, but to be honest, this is an exceptionally written episode. This scene has, without a doubt, more emotion than anything before, and definitely anything after. Okay, this is one scene in iCarly Season 2 and one episode, but I'll get to that later. So Drake admits that his life is much worse without Josh, and just the acting, the fact that there's no laugh track, the overall tone, the climactic feeling of it all is just, it's such a powerful scene. A very good scene. Just, it's nearly perfect. Yes, without this scene, this episode was really good anyway because overall the comedy is really good. The story is overall pretty nice, but this scene right here, wow. And then at the end, Drake and Josh make up and they play ping pong. Well, this is the full package. This episode is very strong comedy wise, very strong story wise, has very good pacing. There's honestly nothing wrong with it. Okay, I don't believe any episode of the TV show is perfect, but I can't really point out anything that is bizarre, or just really stupid. It's amazing. Yes, this is not just a good episode, but a phenomenal episode. Episode 49. Eric punches Drake. Drake gets made fun of after Eric hits him in the face. I will admit this is another good episode. Well, it's just the same level as some of those good episodes from season 3. Again, those are good episodes, so there's nothing wrong with that, but there's nothing that really stands out, and there's nothing that really sticks out compared to anything else. I mean, yeah, I know this episode is kind of basic, but honestly, I don't have much to say about it. It really sucks because I get guilty over having less than stellar reviews, but oh well, when an episode's good, it's just good. There's nothing really to talk about. This episode's pretty harmless. There's nothing really good about it that much, to be honest, but nothing really bad about it. I think the comedy is, like basically every other episode, pretty decent. I do like Drake confusing Eric being a pacifist with him being Jewish. That was pretty funny, but besides from that, the comedy is not really that memorable, to be honest. Uh, I'm I'm actually struggling to think of what to say about this episode. Really, it's just a good episode. Episode 50, Megan's Revenge. Drake and Josh believe that they killed Megan's hamster and now to deal with their possible ways of revenge. Alright, so I gotta admit, this is one of the few instances where the episode got a little better as I watched it. Okay, it's not that good. I'm just gonna say right now, this is a relatively low meh episode, but I used to think it's a baddie McFaddy. Mainly because Megan's prank gag is not funny at this point, but I do like how clever they reused the plot line this time. In this episode, it's not really Megan herself that's the conflict, but it's more the guilt and fear of her. I mean, in a way that makes her the conflict, but you get my point. The problem with this episode is that nothing happens. Okay, so yeah, most of the episode are schemes of Drake and Josh trying to escape the dead hamster situation. You know, they're amusing, but it's just not something that should take the majority of the episode. I mean, Megan's not that irritating in this episode, but I still find this episode just really boring and a bit forgettable. There are a total of 2 jokes that I thought were funny. Josh saying there's nothing that happens in Utah, and Drake thinking about his butt being glued to Josh individually or together. It's hard to explain, but yeah, it was funny. Overall, the comedy is alright, but it's not up to standard as usual. Also, I will admit that the twist at the end is a little bit clever, but honestly, the way that the hamster fell to the ground really did give the impression that it died from the camera flash. So, to be honest, I wouldn't have been surprised if they actually killed the thing. Overall, it's not a good episode, but you could do much worse. Episode 51, Steered Straight. Drake and Josh come across some criminals as they experience what it feels like to be arrested. Alright, so firstly, funnily enough, like Pilot, this is another episode that kind of freaked me out when I was young. It's mainly the one scene where Drake was tearing apart Josh's fake limbs. I was so freaked out when I was young, and the worst part is that when I first watched the episode, I came around that part since I didn't see the first half, so I had no idea the limbs were fake. It freaked me out, man. But years, possibly a decade later, I watched the episode and I really like it. Yeah, it's a good episode. In terms of satire, this episode delivers on the goods. Walter being in the dress is pretty funny, and also him being trapped in the closet is pretty funny. Also, the Jefferson Steel Flex and Alvin Yakatore fake IDs were hilarious. I think most of the comedy here is just visual humor, which is not a bad thing at all, really, but it's kind of hard to analyze it. In terms of plot, this episode is pretty good. It has a slow but steady progression, and I like it. Still on the topic of Pilot, though, like I said in the fun fact part, in the beginning of this episode, Josh is laying on the couch on his laptop when that episode he couldn't sleep on it because he had lumbar problems. I'm guessing it's because of the weight loss, but it's whatever. But overall, it's a pretty good episode. Episode 52, Megan's First Kiss. Drake and Josh spy on Megan when she gets her first boyfriend. Okay, off the bat, no, Megan actually doesn't kiss her boyfriend, so the title is a little bit misleading. But besides that, this episode is really good. In fact, I can't really think of a flaw with this episode, to be honest. I love the pep pep la dorle do gag that Drake makes when he and Josh are in costumes trying to spy on Megan. Though on one note, this may be the only episode where Helen is actually mad at Drake. About time. But anyway, there are other good jokes here too, but what I really enjoyed in this episode is probably Megan. Not gonna lie, it seems that season 4 was aware of the running gag of Megan manipulating and doing dumb pranks. It seemed that she didn't do as much this season. If anything, she seems more mature, and I really like it. I really do. Granted, the plot itself isn't anything new. Of course, it's one of those plots where a guy is dating 2 girls at the same time. But even though the plot isn't new, I love this episode. There's nothing really wrong with it, like I've said. It's just a really enjoyable episode. Episode 53, Battle of Panthatar, or Panthatar, however pronounce it. Drake and Josh have to try to get a record back after they are invited to a Sweet 16. Okay, so basically these two were invited to this party, but since Drake was being the usual, he makes out with some girl who happens to be this one dude's girlfriend, and it's hard to explain, but yeah. Alright, so this episode is... Okay, I will admit this is a good episode, but I wouldn't say it's superbly written or remarkable, to be honest. Firstly, the story is really, really sloppy in the first half, and the overall episode does not start off good at all. Okay, I get that Drake was wrong for making out with Thornton's girlfriend, but Drake had no idea she was his girlfriend in the first place, and they point this out, but the guy just gets mad. I'm flustered that I can't even finish a sentence. Granted, they do break up, but even still, it just bothers me. The next thing is that even though Thornton got Drake out of the waiting list for a stupid but an actual reason, he just uninvites Josh for no real reason, really. Yeah, you just say if he took Drake, he would take Josh, but Josh didn't do anything wrong, so I don't get why Thornton took him off the list. The next thing is when Drake and Josh give the guy the Beatles album, and Thornton just doesn't let them in still. Yeah, you can tell this guy is not likable in the slightest. So with all this, you expect a meh or a bad episode. Well, I think the second half is really good. Yes, they do get the record back, thank God, but there's some really cool satire here, such as the really funny Red Sky Not battle sequence of Drake and Josh. The guy literally led Megan in and not the guys. I hate what it means in the context of the story, but I will admit it is a little funny. Either way, this episode does have a really good second half, but the first half is not that good. Episode 54, Really Big Shrimp. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do something different. In a future video, I will cover all 3 Drake and Josh TV movies, which include Drake and Josh Go to Hollywood, This, and Merry Christmas. But just for the statistics' sake of this season, I will have a brief analysis. I'm going to cover more, obviously, on the future video, but I'm just going to make it quick for statistics' sake of the season. I will just get out of the way. This episode is pretty good, and like I said, this is like 3rd time, I'm going to get even more in depth with the future video. In terms of comedy and story, this is pretty good, and if there's one standout joke, it's probably the ending where they have the callback to the e.v.a.n show with the little shrimp on the ground, the 2 fighting over it. But yeah, it's a good episode. Episode 55, Helicopter. Drake and Josh get to ride a helicopter. However, due to some misfortune, they have to skydive while the thing is in autopilot. Alright, so firstly, I shall say that, yes, this episode is reused in a very bad episode. Trip steals the jet in Game Shakers. So already a knockoff for that episode, and spoiler warning for that episode. But either way, I find this episode to be pretty good. My favorite part is when Josh realized Drake left to jump out of the helicopter and try to sell it as him and Drake going to the water park to the mom. You have to see it to see where I'm coming from, but yeah, it's pretty funny. The plot of this episode, however, is a little bit lacking. There's nothing inherently wrong with it, but yes, it's one of those episodes where they're just in one place for most of the time and not that much happens. Okay, it's not nearly to the extent as the other episodes, but it still does happen for a decent amount of time. In terms of comedy, this episode does deliver on the goods, but it's not insanely funny though. But still, I find it a pretty good episode. Episode 56, Dance Contest. Drake and Josh enter a dance contest, but they both have to face off against each other with a girl. Alright, well, I gotta say that even though Really Big Shrimp was a true series finale, I gotta say that as the aired series finale, I think this episode still fits. I mean, most of it does feel like a typical episode, but I won't lie. The dance routine at the end does have a sense of finality to it, and I like it. However, is the episode overall a good series finale? Heck yes it is. Good episode to end off, which is very cool. In fact, I can't really think of anything really wrong with this episode. Judging by how Dan get in the Van Schneider, writing practices are a little bit repetitive, admittedly. It is a little bit predictable that the girls Drake and Josh were hooked up with were going to have some problems, and at the end, they'll all backfire. But to be fair, I didn't really expect Drake and Josh themselves to dance together. There are 2 other minor things that do bother me. First of all, it is very, very stupid that there's an episode that has the exact same name that's aired on the exact same day for Zoe 101. By the way, in case you're wondering, no, I'm not reviewing Zoe 101. I've seen a decent amount of episodes, but I really don't have true memories of Zoe 101. I barely remember most of it. I remember the characters, the premise, and whatnot, but I'm not reviewing it. Anyway, another thing, and just like Mean Teacher, this part is kind of affected by the later stuff. Well, it means that Jeremy Riley, the guy who plays Luber in iCarly, I think he was even on the e.v.a.n show, and also plays that one weird guy from Poison Pie from Garbage Shakers, Game Shakers. Ugh, come on. Guest stars in this episode. Granted, he's just one of the executives of the contest, but I'm just going to say this right now, I'll say it again later. Reusing your actors does not make you look good. Even though it's a bit lazy, I can get down with an actor from a previous show starring in the new show, kind of like how Miranda Cosgrove went from Megan in this show to Carly and iCarly, how Victoria Justice went from Lola from Zoe 101 to Tori from Victorious. However, when you just keep using one-offs, then it's just so lame. There's nothing else to really point in this episode. It's just a really good episode, really. TV movie number 1. Yeah, I'm not saying episode because technically it's not a part of the episode list, neither of these TV movies, but anyway, Drake and Josh Go Hollywood. I don't know why it's not Drake and Josh Go to Hollywood, but whatever. Drake and Josh, like the title says, go to Hollywood because Megan accidentally goes on the wrong plane and ends up going to Los Angeles instead of Denver, Colorado, like she was supposed to. Now, with the TV movies, I decided that I'm just going to go for a more shorter approach. I'm just not going to have a script. I'm just going to be kind of improv. But these episodes are TV movies. Ugh. They're going to have very short reviews because originally I was going to have just a video to the 3 of them and just spend time with them. But honestly, I haven't seen either of the 3 in a while because like Tina never airs them, and I don't really want to look off YouTube to either look up like a low quality version of all 3 of these TV movies or just buy them, which I just don't want to do it, to be honest. So call me lazy, but I don't care. But yeah, I just want to get these TV movies out of the way. I'm just gonna keep the Really Big Shrimp one. So I still think that's a good episode, and I still think comedy and story are good. But let's just get on with the other 2. Uh, Drake and Josh Go to Hollywood. From the last time I've seen it, I think it's a really good special. There's a lot that goes on. It definitely does do a good job being a TV movie. It keeps it has the time. It definitely fills up the time slot. It doesn't waste an hour of your time. um, or an hour and a half. I don't know how long is it. But yeah, it's a good movie. Merry Christmas, Drake and Josh. There really isn't a premise for this episode. There's just a lot of antics that happen. I mean, yeah, Drake and Josh want to provide this little girl, Mary Alice, the best Christmas ever, but a lot of antics happen, and there really isn't a main plot to go by, or main synopsis anyway. So how do I feel about this episode? It's pretty good actually. Yeah, I just want to mislead you. Again, there's not much to say about the special. It's really good. Again, it doesn't have a laugh track, so it's kind of bearable to watch. Yeah, it's a good TV movie. Ugh, finally. And that is every episode of Drake and Josh as a whole reviewed, including the movies. With two mess seasons and two good seasons, I think it's safe to say that Drake and Josh is an overall really good show. Yes, it has two mess seasons and two good seasons, but there's no bad seasons, and even then, the best episodes of season 3 are really good, do come up toe to toe with season 2 and season 4. Season 1 is the worst, but it's only 6 episodes, so what's the matter? Anyway, I'll see you guys with iCarly season 1, and oh boy, that's gonna take forever.